Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on episode 10 of Violet Evergarden, and this show has done an expert job at going through the 5 stages of grief, especially in the last episode. But I'll argue, I've been putting down some notes here. I'm wondering if this show, because at the end of the last episode, I was like, man, Violet, she went through kind of the 5 stages of grief within 2 episodes, but I'm wondering if maybe this last part of the series is kind of also the 5 stages of grief as well. And what I mean by that is that at the end of episode 7, she finds out about Gilbert's death. It finally comes out in the open, and her immediate thing to do is run away. And so the first stage of grief is denial and isolation. And so the first thing she does is she runs away. She's like, nope, not having it. And then in episode 8, a good portion of that episode at the start was her like retracing her steps and isolating herself and still being in denial and being like, no, it's not possible. And then trying to find him. And then that leading into, the family member taking her to the grave and then her getting all these memories back. And in this last episode, even though she kind of went through the 5 stages within that episode, a lot of it was her anger. Her anger at Dithard, her anger at Hodgins, her anger at herself primarily, and just how she's going to live without him, to the point where she tried choking herself. And so at the end of the episode, she pretty much came to accept it, it seems, but I'm not entirely sure. She's just still trying to get through it. So I was wondering, we've got 4 episodes left, and we were talking about this on Patreon, and I'm sure by this point we've talked about it in the YouTube comments, but I was like, man, if you had ended last episode and ended the whole series, I wouldn't have been satisfied, because we still have that letter to write. She still has to write that dang letter to Gilbert. That still has to happen. That's what this whole series has been building up to, her love letter to Gilbert. She still has to write it. But if you'd ended it last episode, I would have been mad that she didn't write the letter. But aside from that, it felt kind of like an ending. Like you had Leon and the flashback to all the people that she's helped, and Spencer and everybody. So it's interesting, but there's obviously still more to the story. And I was talking on Patreon, but I really want her to confront Dithard. I want her and him to have a conversation, because like fellow patron Space Monkey and I were talking about, she is still grieving, but so is he, because even though Dithard is probably the most unlikable person in this show, he's still human, and Gilbert was his brother. And so they didn't seem distant. They seemed pretty close, especially since their dad wasn't around. So I'm sure that Dithard is grieving to an extent. He's just an unlikable person that makes, cruel decisions. And so, of course, he views Violet as subhuman. So I want them to talk about it, and for him to realize that Violet isn't subhuman. She's just as human as he is. And she's feeling these emotions. And that was starting to come to the surface back in episode 8. And then it just kind of cut off. But so the stages left, if episode 10 followed the next stage, it would be bargaining. And so I wonder, she seems like she wants to stay with the auto memory dolls. So I wonder if her writing the letter is going to be like that bargaining, like let me write this letter and we'll get it to him somehow, or she still thinks he's alive, because again, no body, no death, although it seems at this point that he is dead. And then that would leave episode 11 depression, episode 12 acceptance, and then we end the series in episode 13. But I don't know if it's going to follow that format, because we went through the 5 stages of grief pretty much in episodes 8 and 9 to a big extent. And then we were getting to acceptance there at the end with her wanting to move forward. And then that still leaves us with episode 13 and 2 movies. So I'm like, what all do we have left to talk about? I guess I'm the most curious, because I've waited this whole series to see Violet's reaction to finding out about Gilbert's status. And now that we've spent 2.5 episodes doing that, I mean, I'm assuming we still have to go through her writing that letter to him, and so we're not done with that storyline, but I'm very interested. So we'll see. We'll see if it follows the 5 stages of grief any further, or what we do with it. But this second half of the season has been really good. I like it a lot more than the first half, but it's been really sad. And it's like emotionally gutted me. So there's that. But in any case, I'm excited to get into episode 10, y'all. So let's do this. Let's get in there, shall we? We are going to start episode 10 of Violet Evergarden here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Ah. I don't think there's been a show that I've cried more during than this one. Damn. These parents with these kids get me right in the feels. This is almost worse than the dad because the mom was there and it was the kid that was left behind. So it's you should have seen it coming. We had an old episode where the dad was left behind and the wife and daughter died, and then in this one the father and mother died and left the daughter orphaned. Oh, I thought going into this that she was doing one of two things. I thought she was either writing letters to her husband, kind of like what Violet needs to do with the major. I thought she was either doing that, or I thought that she was writing letters to all the family saying her goodbyes, like writing them to like all the family members that she had, because the daughter kept going on about, how they didn't care for her, so why was she writing a letter to them? So I thought maybe she was doing that, and then the girl would get a letter. No, this show designed to write her 50 years worth of birthday letters for the next 50 years. And then I'm assuming maybe the mom was 50, or, well, no, the girl's only like 6 or 7, maybe 10. And she didn't seem that much older, but I guess 50 is enough. But, yeah, that was gutting. The mom writing all those letters to her, knowing she wouldn't be there with her. And Violet saying she had to hold back tears the whole time she was there because she was so sad. Like Violet has the best poker face, because Violet's like, I get to hold it all in. Like she was so stoic, but then when she gets back there, and I was like, somebody give her a damn hug. And Catalina, thank goodness, gave her one. But I mean, I guess this could be a bargaining episode, because the mom bargains with Violet to give her time to write these letters so that her daughter can have more time with her in an odd way. And the daughter bargaining with Violet to spend time with her and to play doll with her, and then trying to tell the mom, God, that scene where she was telling the mom, she's like, I wanted to spend more time with you. Because, yeah, like, this episode. Because, yeah, like, kids know. They're not idiots. They get that. This episode was so hard. I joked that at the beginning of it, it was kind of like, if you ever seen the movie Beetlejuice, the actual, like, the live action movie from the early 90s, in that there's a family that keeps trying to buy the house from the couple that lives there, because the couple doesn't have any kids, and they live in this big farmhouse, and these people keep coming to try to buy it because they're like, oh, you guys, it's too much room for you, you'll never use it all. And that kind of is what reminded me at the start of this episode, when the couple comes to try to talk the mom into getting the house from her. And so the little girl, but yeah, like the little girl having lost her dad, and she's accepted that he's not coming back, and then losing her mom, and her mom was so kind. It's just gutting, and Violet knowing exactly what that feels like, and Violet giving her a hug. And when Violet said that she didn't know what that felt like, she couldn't hold somebody with her arms anymore, they didn't feel like flesh and blood anymore, that was so horrible. And she still gives the girl a hug. And then the girl making her play with the doll and thinking that she's a doll at first and all that. The animation in this episode, it's so subtle. The animation's so subtle in this. It's not like, this is kind of the opposite of the episode with the father, episode 7. It's the opposite, because in that episode, everything is like open and vibrant and colorful, and it's contrasted. It's kind of a contrast with the dad. The dad feels so depressed and isolated, and he's in this big, beautiful house with all these colors and everything, and he should be happy, but he's not. And here, it's kind of the opposite, where the mom and the daughter are having this great relationship, but the house is very cold and very bare, and when you look at it, there's shadows and dust, and it just looks like it's not been inhabited very much, because the mom mainly stays in bed and the daughter's all by herself playing. But I was like, I like the episode 7 and this episode are the ones that have gutted me the most, and they're just about the simplest things. But that's, oh man, I don't know. There's something about when there's like a good parent and there's like a kid, and then there's a situation like this that's just, it's just like a trigger. I'm like, no. And just like the raw emotion of her and Ellis, the maid that has to like try to wrangle her, and she's so innocent, Anne is, that she gets it, but she doesn't get it. She gets that things are wrong, and when she comes out and says, she's like, I'm tired of people taking away your time that you could spend with me, it's like, so sad. I'm like, you didn't have to do that, show. You didn't have to do that. And there's lots of hints that the mom is like using the big words and everything, and writing the letter and being with her, and we don't know what the illness is, but that's inconsequential. It doesn't matter. And then I like that Violet doesn't know how to play with toys, because she never really had any toys. She didn't, grow up with that. So she's looking at the doll and holding it like this, like, I don't know what to do with this. And I love when she says hello to the doll, and Anne imitates the voice, and Violet slowly looks over to her, and Violet slowly looks over to Anne, like, and has like the most judgmental face we've ever seen Violet make in this show, because she's like, did you just speak back? And the girl's like, the doll was the one who said it. And Violet's like, oh, I see. Gotcha. I see the game that we're playing. She's like, I understand the game. And then Anne likens it that, oh, you're a doll, so you've never played with one. And then at the end, she finds out that she's not really a doll. But, oh my gosh. Ugh. And yeah, her just kind of like looking over. And then when the mom was crying at first, I thought that she was crying because the letter was like maybe to her husband or something. But then when you know now that she's writing a letter to her daughter, and that Violet was holding back tears the entire time. 50 letters in 7 days is a lot. It's a lot. I guess they ended on an arbitrary number. But... And then I like that she tries selling riddles with her and jokes. And then, yeah. That's just, ugh. It's such a somber, hard episode. Because, like, consoling a kid is so much different than consoling a parent. Ugh. I like want to bawl my eyes out. So trying to talk through this is very difficult. Because just rewatching this to try to pick up things is like, and Violet, this is the way that Anne acts throughout this whole thing. The way that Anne acts, God, it's an analogy to how Violet has acted with Gilbert, right? Because yeah, Anne was telling her, she's like, everybody's taking all this time away from you, and I just want to be with you. And that's exactly how Violet feels about Gilbert. That she's like, we didn't have this time, and you left me alone. And just like, I don't know what to do, and you're not there anymore. And when Anne like throws the tantrum and like bangs on her chest and everything, it's like exactly how Violet felt knowing that Gilbert wasn't there. She's like, that has that same emotion in her. And when and it's Violet telling Anne there's nothing that can be done. And she's like, it's not your fault. And that's the thing. So the same thing as Violet was blaming herself. And Hodgins was like, it's not your fault he's gone. And it's just like a parallel. The exact emotions that Anne is feeling with her mom and losing her mom are the same ones that Violet's felt losing Gilbert, and for Violet to be the one to have to console her. Ugh. It's hard. This episode's hard. There's nothing that can be done. And like telling a little kid that, like just saying it so, and then yeah, like what else can you do except hug her and let her cry it out? And saying why she's writing the letters, and of course she couldn't tell her because that's the point. The point is she's writing them for you because the mom's like, the mom knew she wasn't going to be there in the next 50 years, but she wanted her daughter to have her with her. And there's no such thing as a letter that doesn't deserve to be delivered. Like going back to the last episode and everything. Ah! And you just imagine that like years later, after like if Erica and them don't work there anymore, that's the tradition, is keep mailing the letters. And then I got such Grave of the Fireflies vibes from the little montage after this when the girl, when Anne and her mom are like playing at the table and doing all that. It felt like Grave of the Fireflies. And I won't spoil it if you've not seen Grave of the Fireflies. It's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's so good and so sad. But it's just... And she gives her the kiss. Anne gives Violet the kiss. And it's like Violet's never had that before. It's like the one like human thing. And her waving, and then it shows the passage of time. And it shows them at the cemetery, and everybody's there, and even Miss Ellis leaves her. And then her 8th birthday, so she'd been 7. So on her 8th birthday. And yeah, her crying into the letter. And the fact that they're going to mail those to her every year for the next 50 years, so when she's 57, she'll still get a letter. Show. It's like, what's the most traumatizing thing we can show you? This, but it connects back to Violet and the whole fact. I can't talk. But it connects back to like the idea that time moves forward and moves on. And then she meets the cute guy while she's wiping the windows, and he gets her the flowers. And the mom's like, I can't give you love advice. And I'm like, why not? You were married. Give your daughter some advice. And she's like, I can't give you love advice. But I'm sure whoever you choose is a wonderful person. And then they have like the kid at the end. You've lived for 20 years now. Amazing. Even adults are allowed to complain sometimes. And she looks like her mom, and oh my gosh. Ugh. And then of course the guy's like, I can't take care of this baby, help. Oh. Just completely got me. And then we go back to the present. And they're at that house. They kept the same house. Show. And we still have 3 episodes left. So there's that. But yeah, Violet showing all this emotion, like out in public emotion, like not to herself alone, but actually in front of all them, that she was worried about Anne. Because she's worried about herself and them all being there for her. And then, yeah, Catalia saying, but the letters are still going to be delivered. So, God. I'm sorry if this reaction was like pretty subdued, but I'm like a mess. So, yeah, I just... like gotta cry it out. So I don't know where, I guess I'm like is Kiowani just gonna be like, here, let's give you the most depressing, sad stories, standalone stories with Violet we can until the end of the series. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm just like seeing Violet come all this way and showing all this emotion. No matter how far away she is, a loved one will always watch over you. And that title, it's like referencing that the mom's gonna watch over Anne in her letters, and that Gilbert set everything up with Violet so that when he died, or if he died, then she'd be taken care of. So it's connecting that whole thing back to what Hodgins told her, was that like Gilbert came to him and told him that he set everything up for things to be okay with Violet if something happened. So it's like he's watching over her, just like the mom's watching over Anne. Like that, just the parallels between the two pairs is, it's not lost on me. But it's, oh my gosh. So yeah, if this was the bargaining episode, the next one's depression. Can't imagine. And then acceptance. But I don't know. I like I said, I feel like Violet's at that acceptance stage, but I just don't know where they're gonna go to from here. I still want her to talk to Dithard. I still think that Violet needs to talk to him. They need to talk about it, even though they both don't like each other, and even though Dithard's been absolutely horrible to her. I feel like she needs to talk to him at some point, because it is his brother, and I'm sure he's grieving the same way. Just maybe not outwardly in public, but I'm sure that he has grieved his brother dying, and so, you know. But oh my gosh, this show. Like I said, I don't normally get emotional or cry with anime, but this series, y'all warned me, and I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm thick as steel. Everything's great. And not this time. Like last episode, I could pull it together, because I feel like at the end of episode 7, there was that shock moment of Violet finding out about Gilbert, and it kind of like jumped me out of it. Like, no, this was like a slow molasses of pain. Just like, it's not changing. So, that's why I don't wear makeup to these reactions. There's no point. So yeah, y'all, this episode was really, really good, but I don't know where we're going to from here. I really don't. We've got 3 episodes left, and then 2 movies, 2 feature-length movies. Show. It's gonna be like, did y'all bring tissues to the theaters? You should have. So yeah, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below on what you thought of this episode, and of Violet and Anne and all of this. It was such a simple story, but that's what gets me. I think it's the simplest stories, like the simplest little things are the things that just like gut me the most, right? Those are the things that just like get me in the feels. And this episode is no exception. So I really like this episode, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about it too. I'm gonna go dry my face and watch something happy. So, which this was really good. It's just, man, just get that knife in there a little bit more. So, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I don't know where we're going to next, but I'll be back next week with episode 11 of Violet Evergarden. Bye.